Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Miscellaneous Gab, and today we're here to discuss Severance Season 2, Episode 8, Sweet Vitriol. Now it's been about 12 hours since the episode dropped, and it already seems to be probably the most divisive episode of Severance yet, with many people calling it necessary, others calling it a beautiful masterpiece, and a large group saying that it could have been an email. I think it was just a matter of time before we had an episode that really divided people. All that being said, while I do miss our refiners, I am really glad we finally got Cobel after 4 episodes, and we didn't just get her, we got her. I thought this episode was beautifully shot, packed with necessary lore about Lumon, and gave us really crucial backstory details into who I think is going to be one of the most important characters to this show. We pick up with Harmony, who seems to have driven to Salt's Neck. This is what we later learn is her hometown. Now, I don't know about you guys, but looking around, I thought, you know what? It's cold and there's a harbor. Cold harbor? She's in a cold harbor. Harmony stops to brush her teeth and spots an ether addict. There's been a lot of talk about ether. Sweet Vitriol, the name of the episode, is a nickname for ether. Now, I was not an ether expert before this episode. The most that I really know about ether and its effects comes from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, both the book and the movie. Ether was used as one of the first viable anesthetics in surgery, pain relief, and even, yes, childbirth. I have a lot of parallels here into the idea of Lumon bringing a cure for all mankind. Once upon a time using ether for childbirth, and now just using severance for childbirth. As Mr. Maurer said, cure will take away all of your pain. Ether was used from the mid-19th century until about the early 20th century, and it's clear that Salt's Neck was an ether town, that the industry, that the ether mill, the factory, was the main source of economic prosperity for the town, as well as its inhabitants. Ether really fell out of fashion in the early 20th century, and we know Harmony Cobel's mother wasn't even born until 1944. We know that Kier worked in an ether mill as a child. That's where he also met Imogen, his future wife, and that he also went on to then run the ether mill. What is unclear is if this ether mill in Salt's Neck is the ether mill or a ether mill. Cobel tells Hampton that Kier and Imogen met at a mill. She didn't say this mill. It very well could have been where Kier came up in the world. This would make the cult-like vibes of Sissy and other Kier followers to feel a lot more understandable. This is literally the birthplace of their god. Either way, it seems like Lumon created this town with the mill, and it has now very much abandoned it, leaving sick, frail, and ether people addicted in its wake. Too much exposure to ether can cause dizziness, respiratory issues, as well as hallucinations, delusions, euphoria. Harmony goes into a nearby cafe. The waiter, Hampton, seems to be peddling ether to the town's very frail and sick-looking inhabitants. As he comes over to greet Harmony, she says,
"Harmony Cobel will flip my toboggan."
And this is almost like she's predicting what he was going to say to her, and I must say, flip my toboggan. I'm gonna have to start using that phrase from now on. One thing I talked with Hack's Dogma about on his post-episode live stream last night was that this guy kind of looks like Dr. Maurer in a way. Like if Dr. Maurer had a twin brother. They're both kind of older, around the same age, handsome for their age with those bright blue eyes. Harmony is extremely paranoid about being followed and watched, probably because she is familiar with what Lumon does to people who run away. When she first says,
"I need you to drive me to Sissy's,"
I thought it was actually her sister, which made what happened between her and Hampton a bit later very weird at first. We know that the Egan family hasn't necessarily shied away from these kinds of practices. Kier's parents himself may have been a little more in the Cersei and Jame Lannister vein than one might think. Hampton says that Sissy is a fucking pariah, preying on the vulnerability of the townspeople and spreading whatever Kier culty brainwashing situation they have going on. Harmony refers to them as old chums, and he says colleagues, child fucking labor. And later on in the episode, we get an idea for just how child of a fucking labor it was, 8 years old or even younger. Hampton seems to have a lot of anger and resentment towards Lumon, and it makes you wonder what he has lost. The people who hate Lumon the most are the people who have lost to Lumon. Did Hampton lose some loved ones, some people he cared about, either through the economic downfall of the town or just the long-term effects of working in an ether mill. We get to Harmony's childhood home. She observes some marks on the wall which stop around the age of 12, indicating that she left around that age. She accuses Sissy of giving him the thirst for it, of giving Hampton, who we know does abuse ether, the thirst for this substance. Is Sissy getting the town hooked on ether? Is this a real cure will take away all of your pain? We know that drugs and substances have been used throughout time, especially in religious and or cult scenarios. With Charles Manson, his cult followers, he used drugs, psychedelics to kind of lower those inhibitions and make them more easily influenced. Tobacco and other types of maybe psychedelic drugs used in sort of religious experiences as a way to connect. Again, another nod at cure will take away all of your pain. I don't think we've ever met as fervent of a cure follower as Sissy Cobel, who is Harmony's aunt, not her sister. Harmony asks what Sissy has done with her things, and she says she's sold them to the poor. I'm sorry, don't you normally donate things to the poor rather than sell them? I mean, that's kind of shitty, right?
Why do you bring nothing but woe into my life?
Now it is you who cursed this house with woe.
You do see this pattern of speech with Irving, with Milchick, and it kind of makes sense if you grow up in this very small and isolated town in which maybe most of the education for the townspeople is actually coming from the teachings of Kier. It makes sense that they might speak a little more archaically. Sissy treats Harmony like a child, and in many ways, Harmony acts like a child. We understand more by the end of this episode that Harmony is some sort of genius savant. I'm not sure if that comes with a side of neurodivergence or all of her unresolved grief having to grow up too fast does cause her to go in and out of these childlike behaviors, whether it's screaming, mine, the way she screamed at Mark, the pigtails, the nightgowns, the curling up into little balls and crying. Not that adults can't do that, I do that all the time, but it does feel very much this transition into this cold, imposing, authoritarian force into this small child that feels like she has to yell louder to get her voice heard. Harmony accuses Sissy of, quote, pulling the breathing tube from her mother's gullet. Gullet was a throwback to the fourth appendix, where Kier says that they laughed until their gullets ached, very aligned with Kier speak. Now, my question is, and I don't think we have a full answer, is this the first time Harmony has returned to Salt's Neck? If her mother passed away while she was not there, there would be no reason for her to come back since as an adult. My only question is, she carries around this breathing tube like a prized possession. If she has not been back, did Auntie Sissy like UPS that shit to her in the mail? Your mom died, here's her tube. It looks very unwashed. Now, of course, there could be the simple explanation that Harmony has indeed gone back and grabbed the tube from her mother's room as something to remember her by. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. We also learned that Harmony's mother, for whatever it's worth, was not a believer. Seems like the sister was the fanatic one. Harmony was more influenced by her aunt. Her mother clearly died of some sort of breathing complications, upper respiratory illness. We don't know if that was after a long and hard life working in the ether mill as well, or just a side effect of living in this town and breathing in the fumes for your entire life. Perhaps Harmony's mother hated Lumon, apparently more than Hampton, because she saw the brainwashing take away her own daughter, take away her sister. Perhaps she too lost so many people to Lumon that all she could do was hate the source of her physical pain and her mental pain. Sissy says that Mr. Egan saw Kier in you, which feels a lot like what someone would say when you want to manipulate them into giving you their breakthrough technology plans and agree to receive absolutely no credit for the rest of their life. Damn. Harmony Cobel was in the Wintertide Fellowship, much like Miss Wong. I had a funny thought through this, which is everyone talks about Miss Wong and child labor at Lumon. I would say that if you're gonna have child labor, the best sort of flavor is that to be in a room where you can play games on your little toy thing and attend to nosebleeds and bully adults, rather than mixing up ether in the mill, getting high on fumes as a literal child. Maybe they show her pictures of the ether mill every time Miss Wong steps out of line. Sissy seems to be holding some sort of Kier egg, which weird, some sort of like talisman of Kier. Harmony goes up to her room and we get a quick look at her shrine. Remember, Harmony had a somewhat similar shrine in her own home, something that she kind of tore apart after they fired her, which makes a lot more sense why she would be so angry and full of malice. On Sissy's shrine, we see little busts of the Four Tempers, some sort of goat tapestry, along with a vertebrae. Could it be a seal vertebrae? I wonder. And cards with the 9 principles of Kier. She opens the door to her mother's room and it feels like it's legitimately been kept like this since the day her mother died. Perhaps this is her first return to properly grieve her mother. Perhaps she's been repressing this grief for so long, and that's part of the reason why she is so fascinated with Mark. She curls up in bed and sips on the breathing tube as if to recreate her mother's last moments. Does not look like much has been washed. She curls up and falls asleep, and we can judge the passing of time by the fact that it has grown much darker out. Eventually, Hampton comes in, exchanges some insults with Sissy, and comes up to get her. Now, keep in mind, when I was first watching this, I was still under the impression that he was her brother. He asks if she wants to get high, and she hasn't huffed ether since she was 8. The two of them huff ether and share a brief kiss. Clearly been years since they've seen each other. They're old friends. Potentially they had crushes on each other. Harmony evidently knows that she can kind of come back and have this influence over him. We know what happens next. She finds the thing. We know what the thing is, but I just want to share something that I pointed out on the post-episode discussion I had with Hack's Dogma last night on his live stream. If this show truly wanted to take the piss, what if Harmony inhaled those fumes, got high, and then was like, guys, I think I invented Severance? What if it was all an ether trip? And what if this has happened before? Mr. Drummond's calling Milkshake and is like, guys, Harmony's in Salt's neck again, so expect a call that she's the true inventor of the Severance procedure. That's when I got the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas vibe. She says she wouldn't throw it away, as in Sissy wouldn't really give it away, and that's because it is a bust of Jame Egan's head. And it seems like because Sissy is so obsessed, she truly wouldn't sell something like that to the poor. It's hard to see exactly what's in the cave. It looked like there's a lot of bottles of ether. In the yearbook, we see that Harmony Cobel was the valedictorian and a picture of her posing with Jame Egan. They clearly convinced her not to take credit for it because Kier's knowledge is for all. And when she says that in front of Sissy, Sissy's like, hell yeah, it is. And that if she had sought credit, she would be banished. So has her been keeping them kind of always maybe been because of the influence of her mother and Hampton? These people might try to screw me over, so I better keep this little bit of leverage that I have on the situation. She asked Sissy to not tell them that she was here, and of course Sissy is a little rat bitch. I would never bear falsity to a steward of Lumon. She says that this town was nothing without Lumon, that Harmony owes everything to Lumon. And in fact, Lumon really owes everything to Harmony. This makes Helena's kind of dressing down of Harmony. I think you've overestimated your contributions. Be more humble. Are you serious, Helena? This also makes Harmony's comment, I had to work for everything, all the more like, what the hell? And we kind of wonder, was she inventing all of this as a teenager? She's truly a baby genius savant type of kid. Sissy tries to throw the papers in the fire, and I was worried that they would get burned, but Harmony is able to kind of push her aside and grab them. Hampton says it's time to go, that he thinks someone's coming. He lets her drive away in his truck and then looks at the car riding down the street.
Come tame these tempers of assholes.
In season 1, episode 5, when Grainer tells her that PD has been reintegrated, he says,
Ran the diagnostics. Full synaptic coupling. Peter Kilmer's memory was reintegrated. You were right, Harmony. We should celebrate.
I'm very curious to know why she was so obsessed with reintegration. Probably because she knows her product better than the board, arguably, and knows its blind spots, but nobody would listen to her. It also makes her anger all the more justified when they let her go because of the Helly situation. I've done more for this company than that bitch ever has. She's causing nothing but problems. It also shows how disrespectful it was that Jame Egan didn't come and talk to Harmony himself after the overtime contingency see. I get very sinister vibes from Jame Egan. I thought this whole time that he pimped out his daughter. I'm seeing that picture of him and her when she kind of looks like a young Hillary Clinton. He is there giving her a bust of his own head. We know that he coerced her in some way. I mean, obviously there's the cult vibes, but I imagine the two of them probably spent some time together, and I shudder to think what kind of went on. It also fully explains why Harmony Cobel is so interested and obsessed with Mark and Gemma and being able to see what can transcend that severance barrier, what can kind of come into that other side. Why did Harmony invent the severance procedure to begin with? Was it like a theoretical thing that she never expected to be put into practice? In that way, I got these strong flashbacks from Dean Highbottom in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. He never meant to actually bring the Hunger Games into effect. It was just their drunken discussions one night. His friend, Cornwallis's dad or whatever, took those ideas and put them into practice, and he spent the rest of his life working very adjacent to the Hunger Games. So that's one way, was that she never actually thought it would come into practice. But the other way that I kind of wonder about is growing up in this ether mill, was she able to see herself, her mother, her family members slaving away, bringing home the terrible stress and unhappiness that comes with working in a factory? The severance procedure could actually help take away their pain. Maybe it started with good intentions, but just like Robert Oppenheimer, you see how good intentions can have devastating consequences. So what did you guys think of the episode? Like I said, I liked this episode. Yes, it was short. I trust what the storytellers are doing. I think there was such a huge reveal we got about Harmony Cobel, and if we had learned this in any other way without her actually going back to her own origin space, I don't think it would have hit properly. I think she's going to be so important. Remember, last episode, the book Haji Murad was referenced, and that is all about befriending the enemy of your enemy to take down that bigger, more common enemy. And that's kind of what we see happen at the end of the episode when she's on the phone with Devin. Does she actually hate Lumon enough now to fully break out of any loyalty and cultish mindset she had to actually bring them down? Not only bring them down, but potentially bring down her own creation. She has been super excited to see Cold Harbor come to fruition, and perhaps she's the only person who knows how to dismantle it. She's the only person who knows how we could stop Cold Harbor. I predict that we will figure out what Cold Harbor is by the end of this season, and it might start with them being able to stop Gemma from going in that room. Maybe at the last minute something is stopped, maybe something is triggered, something happens where she is saved from that fate. That's kind of where I predict the season will end. Now, the one thing that I do think would have made this episode a bit better is if we also had a little bit of Mark and Devin in it. Devin, her rashness to call Cobel, I kind of disagreed with, but you would think that the moment Mark is awake, he's like, don't call that woman. What I would have liked to see is potentially the episode opening with another dialogue between Mark and Devin, and then maybe ending with them finally getting through to Harmony, but it's on their side. We do have 2 episodes more of backstory and exposition. I think it's going to be so important for the last 2 episodes. Harmony Cobel is one of the most important characters, and just like I wouldn't be upset to know where Milkshake came from, I am not upset to know where Harmony Cobel comes from. I don't think it could have happened any other way. But if you didn't like it, let me know in the comments. Speaking of Milkshake, I'm wondering what Milkshake's role will be. We know that Milkshake has just the seed of doubt in the back of his mind. He's been an ardent Cure follower until the paintings. Maybe he was a previous Wintertide fellow, but those paintings, they set something off on him. They make him feel uncomfy. I think that there's something that maybe doesn't sit right with Milkshake, and perhaps that was with Harmony. She tried to lie to herself by saying, yes, Cure's knowledge is for all. I should not seek credit. That's not very humble of me. But clearly there was something in the back of her mind that caused her to save these pages. I am almost scared to make any predictions for next episode. Cobel, Mark, and Devin will team up, but whether they actually work together or if someone double crosses the other person, that all remains to be seen. Remember to like and subscribe. If you haven't, I'll be doing another pre-game live stream next week. Check out my other videos. I have tons of theory videos on this channel. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to my amazing Waffle Party VIP Patreon members. Thank you guys for all your support, you guys. Special shout out to Mr. Vaca. Lima, Marlon Yamzon, Chris Bozeski, Jim Rodney, Matt Winbury, Davis Crushing, Dolores Abernathy, Bo Dierker, and Daniel Ariano. And thank you to everyone else who helps support this channel. All right, guys, stay safe out there, for real. Things are getting kind of intense, and make sure whatever you do, don't get severed. See you next time. Bye.